What's up, everyone? We are currently covering the uprisings in Nepal against the deeply corrupt, nepotistic, neoliberal capitalist government of Nepal right now. We are going to be having a corresponding directly from Nepal. I think they are based in Kathmandu. Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. We've been conversing over the past couple of hours, over the past few days, right, about what's been happening in Nepal,
Yeah.
right? So my understanding is that, okay, I want to be perfectly clear about one thing. It is not because of the social media ban that this all started. It is not because of that. It is the final.
No.
No, not at all. This is a long-standing set of grievances that the Nepali youth and actually just the Nepali general population had with the ruling class, right?
Yes.
So can you give us a timeline as to where this started? By the way, would you like to introduce yourself, or do you think your identity is like needs to be?
I would like to introduce myself as a youth in Nepal, a communist youth in Nepal, who is not involved in any mainstream electoral parties that call themselves communists. I consider myself a Marxist. I'm here today because I want to shed some light on what has been happening in Nepal and what is continuing to happen even today. So yeah, that's my introduction.
So what happened originally was, I think it was starting last week, right? What was happening was this protest against the corruption of the government, the blatant corruption of the ruling party of KP Sharma Oli, was
Yes.
reached a certain point, right? And there was there's always this massive grievance that Nepalis generally had with the ruling class that included this party as well as the opposition party that waged war against the former king Gyanendra Shah, and eventually the war between the Maoists and Gyanendra Shah government basically resulted in a republic, a liberal republic, where many of the Maoist cadres would join the Nepali army, and then the Maoist party, the CPI, the CPN Maoist Center, who is led by Prachanda, right? This is the main Maoist figure in Nepal. This is the opposition party. They became an official party, and Pushpa Kamal Dahal became an institutional party, basically the opposition party, right?
Yes, history of Nepal as until today has been a lot of histories of struggles, and the parties that are currently the ruling parties of Nepal themselves came through a lot of struggles after the civil war ended, and many formerly communist parties joined up basically the state and became the ruling party themselves. I think the Maoists did that after the Civil War, but the other parties were already, like the UML was already part of the state in some capacity when nominal democracy under the constitutional monarchy was introduced for a short period. But currently, all parties that call themselves communists are present in the electoral system of Nepal are generally not understood to be communists by other communists.
How long has this protest been happening for?
The protests, which started as a peaceful protest, started on September 8th, and today it is September 10th. So I would say 3 days. But the protests, the people who originally started the protest, the Gen Z, the organizers of that protest have already pulled back from the protest yesterday night because of the threats of the army takeover and all the other things that were going on right then.
My understanding is that immediately as the protesters started, the police was deployed to directly, serve as a counterinsurgent force against the protesters. And in doing so, I believe 20 some odd people died, including a kid. So the cops killed a kid in a school dress carrying a school bag while protesting against corruption in Kathmandu, right? This is accurate information. Am I right?
Yes. So when the background of the protest, I think we should discuss that first.
Okay.
The backdrop in which the protest happened was there was a huge social media movement that it is common. It's a common, like a, what you could say, a trend in countries of the global south that are underdeveloped and corrupt, that people make a point in exposing members of the government who are leading corruption. In that way, citizens of many countries have done that and continue to do that. Similarly, Nepal also joined on that trend, and the Nepali youth were had a general frustration with the government because of many things such as unemployment and rising prices of living. Many Nepali people, Nepali youth mainly, also joined that frustration and exposing the government on TikTok and other social media apps. And when they started doing that, the government, the KP Oli's government, and also announced the social media bans, where 25 of the most popular social medias were banned. Basically, even though the social media ban was what kind of triggered the protests. The protest was already in the making because of the years of, I would say, not just years, but decades of pent-up frustrations against not just the KP government, but the government of both the Maoists and the Congress, all three, government of all three ruling parties. Because of this, the youth basically announced a protest. The protest was meant to be a peaceful protest, and the people attending the protest were very young people. It was basically students, school and college students, and most people attending the protest didn't even know what protest was before this. They didn't expect the government to be so offensive at something that didn't pose any harm.
They
The
didn't
government could have
expect
just
the level of
let them.
violence that the government engaged in against the protesters.
Yeah, not at all. The people protesting had no idea that government would do this so quickly and so recklessly, because the liberals who organized the protest originally played into the state's sensibilities by asking the students to wear a school uniform during the protest, so the government will not abuse or beat them. Government killing them was not even on their mind at that time. That their biggest concern was the police beating them or harassing them. And the massacre that occurred on September 8th came as quite a shock to not only the protesters but the whole nation.
What is the history of the Nepali police? Have they, like, according to what you're saying, they haven't used this much excessive force in the past, have they?
The Nepal police, as with the police that fired the shots in the protests, were the armed police force, APF, and that is a special police force that was created during the civil war to fight against the Maoist insurgency. And these police force are like basically, they seem like a typical armed military group. Basically, they are less of a police force and more of an armed military group that can be used recklessly because they don't have to follow the.
So they're basically an armed
the law.
counterinsurgency organization, basically. So they're not that dissimilar to something like Salwa Judum in India. I'm sure you've heard of those guys, or the Sri Lankan Special Task Force in Sri Lanka.
Yeah. Armed police force, APF, trains with the Nepali army.
Yes.
And the Nepali army trains with British, Israeli, and US troops. So it's obvious that killing children is quite a compulsion for these organizations that they must engage in every once in a while, I guess. Although to a smaller scale, things like this keeps happening every couple of years. But this scale has been quite unprecedented after the Civil War. Even the 2006 April massacre that was committed, which led to the fall of the monarchy, even that massacre that happened in the duration of about 16 days did not kill this many people. This was quite unprecedented in the history of Nepal, especially after the civil war.
So Drizzle, we have another Nepali in the chat. Nepal police has always been a violent tool of the government for both the ruling government and kings. Even in civil protests in 2005, the cops were very violent. During 19 days protests, 19 people were killed, but on September 8th, they killed over 20 in a single day. So this is why you were saying this is a shock, basically, because even though the Nepal police has done this sort of violence before, to this extent in one day is unprecedented, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that is unprecedented.
So APF is its own force in Nepal, just like BSF in India. They specialize in border security and civil unrest. Understood. So APF is basically specialized police / border security, homeland security, or ICE almost, as Jason said. You could think of them as ICE almost.
Yeah, kind of, yes.
Do you think it's relevant to talk about the civil war that happened between the king, right, the Gyanendra Shah versus the Maoists? If you want to give us an idea of why the civil war happened in the first place first. I mean, obviously, so Gyanendra Shah, the long story short is he was basically a tyrant. He was a massive tyrant while he was in power, and he is allegedly responsible for the murder of, what was it, 7 of his family members.
That news or the conspiracy of Gyanendra killing his family members seems, I don't exactly know, but it seems it is unsubstantiated and it is not exactly believed by experts. The most popular consensus as to who killed the royal family members was the Dipendra, basically the prince of the royal family.
This guy,
The
Dipendra Bir
Gyanendra,
Bikram Shahdev, this guy.
yes.
He was allegedly responsible for the massacre. Okay, so that is the popular consensus amongst experts, right? But I was told also that one of the reasons that Gyanendra is also deeply unpopular within the country is not only due to his, I believe he also engaged in enforced disappearances, massive repression of the press, massive repression of any form of dissent during his reign.
Yes.
He is viewed popularly among Nepalis as a brother killer.
There, yes, many people believe in the conspiracy, whether founded or unfounded, I don't know, that Gyanendra was the one who killed his brother to basically get the power, to get the throne.
Right.
I don't really know about the truth of the incident. I don't think it's true.
Okay.
So I really can't say much about that.
Okay. So what was the fault? What led to the civil war between the Maoists and the royalty and the ruling government at that point in time? What was the catalyst and what was the reason for that in the first place?
The reason of the civil war, monarchy was basically quite a regressive force in Nepal at the time. In a world where everywhere else monarchies were either already fallen or were in the process of falling, and in Nepal, monarchy still stood standing. And because of the rise of the communist movement all over the world, and Nepal was also a part of it, obviously, because Nepal is part of the world. There are various democratic struggles against the rulers of Nepal before the Shahs, or before the monarchy, the Ranas. Those democratic struggles were led by democratic or liberal organizations like Nepal Praja Parishad. But after the fall of the Ranas, Shahs were the ones, although they were already in power, they were the ones who basically came on the top and became the ruling government of Nepal. And the reign of Birendra Saha, the brother of Gyanendra Saha, was quite brutal. And the communist movement grew under his reign. And the party Maoists that we say currently is basically a continuation of the party that was called Mashal, which led the fight against the monarchy. Communist Party of Nepal, Maoist, was formed, and it launched a people's war against the state, against the monarchy. After a long struggle until 2006, a UN peace resolution was written up, and the process was called the peace process, and it was a ceasefire between the Maoists and the state, which happened. The peace process happened after the April massacre, in which the Gyanendra, who had come to power after Birendra died, had basically used martial law, overthrew the existing constitutional monarchy, in which a democracy, a nominal democracy, was introduced, which Gyanendra overthrew. So Gyanendra took full power, banned the media, banned news, basically suppressed dissent, and intensified his military attacks on the Maoists and the general people. The Maoist struggle in the first place was started mainly because of the communist struggle all around the world, but also because Nepal was a quite poor country that was not industrialized, and that
Deeply
was
casteist country as well,
basically.
right? My understanding is that the ruling party
Yeah,
were all upper caste, and the Maoists originally
Yes.
had support. The civil war originally started as a land reform movement, and it especially was popular among in the rural village areas among mainly
Yes.
ethnic minorities and indigenous people of Nepal. But that's
Yes,
where the basis of the Maoists originally came from. It came from marginalized caste people as well as the indigenous people of Nepal as well. That's where the base of the Mao support
Yes.
originally came from.
The base of the Maoist movement found itself, first of all, in the rural villages, the remote villages that were untouched by the government, that were uncared for, and that was basically abandoned by the state to fend for themselves. and the Maoists became popular there, and their main base of support was among the oppressed, among the oppressed castes and people, indigenous people. They had intensive support, and they were also supported by women. Maoists were said to have the highest participation of women among armed militant movements at the time. I think even today that still holds. Most, according to most communists, and the Maoist movement betrayed itself, betrayed its support, betrayed everybody, and joined the state apparatus. In abandoning the basically the armed struggle, it also abandoned every other struggle. It became part of the ruling classes. The weapons of the Maoists was either surrendered to the UN or integrated within the state apparatus. Many former Maoists became part of the Nepali military. And yeah, that is basically a short history of the Nepali Maoist movement and how it became the way it is today.
So basically, so the betrayal happened almost as soon as the peace accord was signed. Is that it? Basically, when they laid down arms.
Yes, the betrayal was happened when they laid down arms, but it wasn't as visible as when they took more and more. And people still supported them. They won elections. They went to the parliament, and the Pushpakamal Dahal Prachanda became the prime minister, the first elected prime minister under the democratic system after the monarchy had fallen. And they had big support among the Nepali people, because at that time, before the peace resolution was signed, they fought on the side of the oppressed. They fought on the side of the oppressed castes. They fought on the side of the indigenous people, the women. A lot of women took up arms, not just against the state, but against the patriarchal system, against the people who were oppressing them, against men. Many Maoists, before they betrayed the people, were known to basically fight for women, fight for women's rights, women to be able to divorce their husband without danger, to be able to. The Maoists used to basically threaten and warn abusive husbands. They used to have people's courts over matters of abuse and domestic abuse. So basically, they had support from all over the country. They had the biggest support among all other parties at that time. And after the peace resolution was signed, they still had a lot of support. But the fact that they had betrayed people was not as apparent, but it became more and more apparent as they basically that it can be seen in their policies. The first Samvidhan Sabha, basically the committee to create the constitutions, was led by a lot of Maoists and a lot of people like Comrade Ahuti, who is no longer part of the Maoists, were part of the Maoists at that time. Comrade Ahuti especially was responsible for the question of women and the oppressed castes in Nepal when drafting the constitution. The first draft of the constitution was created, and it was quite a progressive constitution, even though it wasn't revolutionary, as no Nepal was no revolutionary state. It had become a average bourgeois democracy, but it was still progressive for the time. And the first draft of the constitution was quite progressive. But the first committee to create the constitution was dissolved, and the second committee basically removed everything progressive from the constitution, stripped the constitution of its elements that made the constitution stand out, that made the constitution good in all ways. And the constitution was a bit of a nothing burger. Nothing happened. The land reform, questions of land reforms weren't addressed. The question of emancipation of oppressed castes were addressed. The question of indigenous people of to self-determination under federalism wasn't addressed. The federalism was made so poorly that the indigenous people weren't even the majority in the federation that they were inside. So they still did not have any real power. They're broken up into several provinces, and basically they still experienced no power. And so the Maoists deeply betrayed the people. They betrayed the oppressed caste. They betrayed women, and they betrayed the indigenous people, and they lost a lot of support because of that. And that brings us to the current situation.
So one of my moderators has a question for you. So what is caste exactly like in Nepal?
The caste system in Nepal and India are pretty similar, but the Brahmins and Kshetris are the high castes. And the caste system is basically a hierarchy where one comes over the other, and the other basically. High castes are Brahmins, Kshetris, and the lower castes are Dalits, who the Dalit name was taken up, as people already know. If the viewers are Indians or Sri Lankans or South Asians in general, the name Dalit was taken up as self-identity, revolutionary self-identity by the oppressed castes. And unlike India, in Nepal, indigenous people were also a significant amount of indigenous people, significant population of indigenous people who did not fit the Hindu caste system were thrusted into the caste system, and they also made part of the lower class, lower caste.
So it's a
The difference
carbon
between the
copy of
Nepali,
India, basically. It is almost identical to India, basically.
it is pretty much identical with its own elements, like everything else.
Every prime minister except for one has always been a Brahmin or a Chetri. Chetri is Kshatriya. It's the second caste in the
Yes.
Chaturvarna system. The new construction set minimum numbers of leaders based on caste. There has to be people from indigenous communities in parliament. There's a law that half the leadership has to be women.
I don't think it's half, but I think it's like 30% or something like that.
30% has to be women. I wonder what Hindu nationalism is like in Nepal compared to India. I mean, the irony is that the king is probably the most, weirdly pro-India / Indian sympathetic force in the country. Am I right?
Basically, the Hindu nationalism in Nepal is quite different from Hindu nationalism in India, in a way that since most Nepalis are anti-Indian, the Hindu nationalism has taken a form where even like Hindu nationalists are divided into camp of pro-India and anti-India. I don't really know how to characterize Gyanendra in that regards.
Interesting. Wait, so there's also a blockade from India imposing an unofficial blockade as a protest against changes to Nepal's constitution supported by Nepal's Madheshi people. Is Madheshi the way that indigenous people are referred to? Is that who the indigenous people are, or is that like...
Madhesi people are the
Bhojpuris.
people
They're
are
basically,
people
yeah,
who
okay.
live,
Maithilis, Bhojpuris, understood. Okay, so they speak like Maithili, Bhojpuri, those languages, understood. Okay.
yes, people who mainly exhibit the Tarai region, who live in Tarai region around Madhya Pradesh.
Okay, got it.
They have basically are the boogeyman of Nepal, and they are treated with quite suspicion. They are treated like they have come to infiltrate Nepal in some way from India. So they are basically, yeah.
Okay, that's not surprising. That's not at all surprising whatsoever. Okay. Going back to the Civil War ending, Maoist Party basically coming into power and basically betraying every single principle that they fought for, right? And if I'm not mistaken, what you said was that the demand for federalism in Nepal was just completely scrapped. Am I right?
Yeah, the Nepal is still considered to be a federal democratic republic, but the federalism in Nepal is not what people had originally envisioned when they asked for federalism. The federalism was supposed to guarantee basically some level of autonomy to the indigenous people, to people living in various areas who are regionally oppressed.
Right. Okay. So this would, like, the federalism would have specifically benefited those that were the various indigenous ethnic groups of Nepal living in the outer rims of Nepal, basically.
Yes.
Okay, understood. We go from there. So the story of basically the accumulating corruption among both the two major parties of Nepal, the duopoly of Nepal, both Mao Center and UML. So basically, my understanding is, and I have the TikTok pulled up. Like, these are so these
Yes.
children that you're seeing, these are the children
They are
of what? Business people, politicians, who?
They're children of politicians, business people, all of them.
So
Politicians
by the
and
way,
business
these are
people, basically.
these are the communist politician children, right? Like these, I think these are like I'm assuming Prachanda's children are showing up in here somewhere, right?
Yeah, I think that from what I know, what I'm aware, Prachanda's children started the whole debacle. The start was like calling out Prachanda's children.
This is another reel that I've been sent or that I've known about for a little bit. These are the children of politicians that are being shown in this reel, basically. And the catalyst for all this is basically one of the things that the protesters were saying, starting September 8th, was that, look at the conditions of ordinary Nepalis living in Nepal right now, and look at the kids of all these politicians. Look at this massive class divide, basically. While we have to sit here and have to deal with
Yes. So the whole thing on TikTok started by calling out politicians' children. They were referred to as Nepo kids or Nepo babies who
Yeah.
basically travel all around the world, go to vacations on France on while having no source of income on the money their parents, their politician parents made from dubious means. I would like to clarify that the word corruption in Nepal has a colloquial meaning that goes from anything from embezzlement to bribery, and it's a quite broad word on here, basically.
Yeah. It can either mean like police bribery, that's corruption, or it can go all the way to the highest levels of grand larceny, basically. Grand larceny and embezzlement.
Yeah, hello, mic testing.
Yeah, yeah, can you hear me?
Am I still connected? Oh yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm showing the audience like one of the things that young Nepalis were showing people why they're protesting.
Yes, the people of Nepal have diagnosed the problem that they're facing, like unemployment and rise in costs, living costs, and lack of opportunities, and having to slave yourselves in foreign countries and send back remittance, which runs the country, and having Nepal being deindustrialized, not industrialized at all, and having no opportunities, etc. Nepalis have diagnosed this problem with the word of corruption, for better or for worse, and that is basically what the anti-corruption movement or protest or demonstration entails. This is not just protest against bribery or just embezzlement. This is a protest against the grand everything that is wrong with the Nepali state and the government and the ruling parties.
It is several decades worth of anger finally distilling into one protest. It is several decades of broken promises by parties that claim to be that once were revolutionary in some aspect, right? That used to be revolutionary at some point during their tenure, but once they became established, they completely foregone it. They've completely stagnated and become part of this overall global neoliberal system. Is a protest movement Maoist or connected to the Maoist movement? No. There is no direct ideological component to the protest movement at the moment. There's no ideology. I think it's also fair to say it's also quite aimless. There's no current direct aim for the protest movement at the moment.
I would like to talk a bit more about the protest itself.
Sure.
What happened in the protest was, as we already know the background, the students, mainly youngsters, school and college students, were protesting against the government. For there was no ideological component. It was just a pent up frustrations just being sown through a massive peaceful demonstration, and the peaceful demonstration was disrupted by the massacre that the government committed through the armed police force, where more than 20 people were killed and multiple students were killed. And after those people were killed, the protest turned into a spontaneous uprising against the government because of how unexpected the scale of the massacre was. And the Nepali people who grew angry with the government after staged an uprising, and because of frustration or whatever the government felt, or maybe it felt like that its existence was in danger, which is it was, the government, mainly the police, went on a rampage around the countries in places like all around Kathmandu, Chitwan, Itari, and even Jhapa, all over the country. The police went on a rampage, killing random people. Police started shooting on random people walking on the streets, people riding motorcycles, going to work, returning from work, returning back to their homes after the protest, random people just doing their thing. There were even reports coming from Dharan that police had broken into homes and raped some women. The police also, there were many videos of police basically firing inside of people's homes, breaking into people's houses. There were videos and reports that the police were breaking into hostels to shoot students, and many more that I have forgotten because of how little I've slept since ever since this happened.
Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ, man. There's an organization that has basically been kind of at the focal point of all this. Let me see if I can find them. Yeah, it is called the Safal community. This is the one that
Yes,
this is
I was
the
going to talk about it.
yeah. So give us a little bit of information regarding the Safal committee.
The Safal Committee is a Nepali workers' street committee that basically sprung out of this spontaneous uprising that happened against the government. It was a committee that was formed by comrades in Kathmandu and in areas, basically the epicenters of where all the rampages happened. The comrades created an organization to defend working class people and students from this government outrage, and to make sure people do not get misdirected in their direction. People do not give up on the protests after not seeing any direction the protest is going. And this organization is quite new from what I know, and the organization have placed its demands. I think it has published two demands, two releases until now.
I'm gonna read it right now. The massacre on 8th September was class struggle. The working class has been openly attacked by the state. The first shot declaring a class war, and the working class must now defend itself. We have therefore declared a Safal committee to organize its defense. Our demands: immediate arrest of the government as public enemies, a people's tribunal against all public enemies, disarming of the state, police, APF, and the army, expropriation of all enemy property and citizenship, general arming of the masses for its defense, dissolution of parliament by an elected workers' assembly, general strikes and demonstration for the defense of the working class, workers of the world unite. Unanimous statement, Safal Committee. So basically, this is the committee that is currently trying to steer the current uprising energy towards a class struggle based energy at the moment.
Since all the parties that call themselves communist parties are bourgeois, and they're basically red liberals who are basically trying to hide their true nature by draping a red mask, and all the organizations like the unions, student unions, and other such types of organizations happen to be daughter organizations of these ruling quote unquote communist parties. There is nobody at the moment to connect this struggle, or to basically call out this struggle of being class struggle, and to take this struggle to the right direction. So Safal Committee is a committee of independent grassroots Marxists who have sprung up and are trying to make sure that the movement does not go to waste. The people whose blood was spilled does not basically make sure that people know that what people in the government say, the people in the government that call themselves communists are not real communists. The masses are fooled by them, and they need to wake up and actually understand that the ruling parties are not working for our interests. And I think a lot of that, it has happened in the last 2 days. Many organizations, like daughter organizations of the big ruling communist parties, have disbanded themselves. And I think it is the right time to steer this towards the right direction and wage a class war and intensify it.
Right, exactly. Okay, I want to bring this up for 1 second because I've seen this quite a bit. I would like you to shoot this down immediately. Fake NGO funded by U.S. corporations led Nepal Gen Z riots. Okay, so people are, let's just call them idiots. Idiots are online immediately calling this a color revolution. Please
First of
tell.
all, I simply do not know what a color revolution is. I have tried to understand for a long time, and I still can't put my fingers on what even a color revolution means. People just call anything color revolution at this point.
They're saying that the Gen Z protests are backed by the CIA because the ruling parties are communist.
I know why this happened. One of my comrades had already thought this would happen. He already said, even before the peaceful demonstration had even started, one of my comrades said that since the Nepali prime minister went to the China nationalist dick measuring contest, the people, basically Western Dengists, China supporters who call themselves Marxist Leninists, are going to call this protest color revolution as well. And that is exactly what happened.
Not just Western leftists, I believe the leader of one of the Kenyan communist parties also decided to call this a color revolution, which is lovely.
Yeah, the general secretary of the Communist Party of Kenya, Marxist, have decided to call this a color revolution, but I think he's misinformed. I think there are a lot of there is class struggle intensifying in Kenya, in Indonesia, and in Kenya it has been for quite a long time. I think during this intense crisis at the moment, I don't think the people engaging in this struggle have time to basically watch the news, watch what's happening, talk to comrades from other countries. I think it is on our part as well, that we haven't shown solidarity to comrades who are struggling all around the world. We need to be more internationalist so that this does not happen. But I think it was a genuine mistake.
Yes. Here we go. Got it. Let's pull this up. Our victory is not a final. Reaction is gathering around us. The Safal Committee calls for the defense of the working class. The massacres of 8th September, which heroically ousted the government, has now spawned a reactionary force. This sole precious victory of the masses is now being stolen under them. The Safal Committee condemns this unholy alliance of armed force, monarchists, and Democrats. We are determined to fight the forces of reaction across this country and move to empower a true workers' democracy. To this end, the Safal Committee calls for 1. The immediate surrender of the class enemy, KP Oli, to a people's court. 2. Immediate end of violent rule. 3. Imprisonment of all freed public enemies and their criminal helpers under people's custody. 4. Masses to form defense committees against this still present danger of armed attack. Old parliamentary system, utterly impotent and corrupt, to be swept aside. We call upon the workers to elect a new People's Assembly to take command of this bloody class struggle. All power to the people. Unanimous statement, Safal Committee. So my question is, what is your read on how popular the Safal Committee is among the current protesters right now?
The Safal Committee has sprung up only when the uprising started, and it is, in my understanding, Safal Committee is small at the moment, and it has not gained wide popularity among the masses because the protests have been very scary at the time. The Gen Z-led protests have already been called back, and the reaction have emerged everywhere. The army has sort of made a statement that seems like a coup. So because of the situation, the Safal Committee although it has gained some ground among various points within the Kathmandu Valley where both the protests were happening and most of the reactions are springing up, it has not gained wide popularity. But I think and I believe because of lack of actual communist parties and because of the lack of any organizations like unions and stuff that to help basically the workers and students defend themselves, I believe that the Safal Committee will gain ground and it will become the popular organizations that pushes this uprising to the correct direction. And I believe that we will, as Nepali people, as workers and students, defeat what seems to be upcoming fascism in this country.
So the current situation right now, as far as the protests are concerned, the army has taken over. So they've basically come in and declared martial law. Is that right?
Yes, they have declared martial law.
So they have completely declared martial law at the moment in Nepal. And there are 2 people that you have said that they are potentially trying to pick as a stable pick. One is Balendra Shah.
One is Balendra Shah and another is Rabi Lamichhane.
So Rabi Lamichhane. Okay, so these are the 2 main picks that the army might back within the next few days. So Balendra Shah is currently the mayor of Kathmandu, and Balendra Shah is give us a little idea of who this guy is. My understanding is that this guy is a nationalist.
Balendra Shah was originally a rapper. Basically, he was a failed rapper when rap. And he gained popularity because when the rap first gained popularity in Nepal and there weren't that many competitions. So Balendra Shah he used to be a rapper. He's still a rapper, but he during the mayoral elections of Kathmandu, last mayoral elections, Balendra Shah gained popularity because of social media and because of this one group called Routine of Nepal Bandha. This group is what brought Balendra Shah to popularity, and because of that he won elections in Kathmandu, and he is basically a nationalist. He's a fascist. He has openly said that he's a fan of Hitler, and he basically has done a lot of things in Kathmandu, like he has beat up street vendors. He has made a living hell for homeless people in Kathmandu, and he's all around terrible people, but he still has some popularity with the petty bourgeois of Kathmandu.
This guy is also a corrupt leader who was arrested under charges of corruption and mismanagement of funds during the protests. His supporters freed him. So this was one of the people that were freed because he was also corrupt. No, so we have similar politicians to him in India with a cult following in India. The one person that comes to mind almost immediately is Vijay, the Talapati Vijay in Tamil Nadu. He's basically an actor that has joined politics. He doesn't have a criminal record like this guy does, and he's not like basically. I wouldn't call Vijay a thug like this guy.
He didn't gain a cult of personality because of rapping. He was quite an unsuccessful and basically unmerited rapper, but he gained a cult of personality because he was young and because of social media. Basically, a lot of what is it called in English? The social media campaigns. Yeah, social media, because of the social media campaigns, especially led by groups, media companies like Routine of Nepal Banda, who is a close associate of Palen Saha, the basically person who runs the media company.
Okay, so no. So Balendra Shah wasn't let out from jail. Rabi Lamichhane was. So who is this guy, Rabi Lamichhane? He was the deputy minister of Nepal, right?
Ravi Lamichhane. Yes, Ravi Lamichhane used to be a journalist, a TV host, and who used to run his own program in a TV channel called I forgot the name basically.
He's
It
on
doesn't
News
matter.
24. It looks like.
Yeah, he was on the News 24. He was a popular TV host and a journalist. And when basically people were tired of the old corrupt and electoral parties that have given so much trouble to the people of Nepal, the people for once thought that independent candidates winning will be the thing that saves Nepal. So they foolishly voted anyone who was independent. That also led to popularity of some monarchists like I forgot the name, Gyanendra something. He's not the king, but he's also named Gyanendra.
I know who Gyanendra.
Sahi, yes, Gyanendra Sahi.
This guy,
Yeah,
Gyanendra
he's a
Shahi.
monarchist.
Yes.
He's a parliament member, and he's a monarchist. He was also voted because of the whole independent thing. People thought independent people is who's gonna save. I don't think he was independent. I don't really remember that. It's been so long since the elections. But basically, the party, the Ravi Lamichhane's party, endorsed him, and he won.
So Rabi Lamichhane endorsed this guy, and this guy rose to fame as the host of a television show on News 24 aimed at setting the world record for the longest talk show in April 2013, which he no longer holds.
He was a popular presenter, he was a popular journalist, but he basically found an opportunity to spring himself into politics, although he had previously said that he will not be joining politics for a few years, maybe half a decade, but he suddenly jumped into politics when the independent thing started being popular, when people started voting anybody who was independent. So he came with his own party. Since the whole thing was that people were voting Balan Saha because of the win of Balan Saha, because of the fact that Balan Saha had won the election of Kathmandu's mayoral election, people there was a wave of people who were were ready to vote anybody who was independent. Another mayor, Harka Sampang, had also won in Dharan as well, who was also an independent. He also won at the same time as Balan Saha. And because of those two people, the wave of independence was basically here. So Ravi Lamichhane jumped into politics and he announced his own party called the Independent Party. Basically, he was not independent. He just named his party as independent to ride on the wave of independence, if it makes sense.
One question: is there a greater Nepal like? Is there like a greater Nepal like conspiracy theory or like greater Nepal like goal or whatever, like a fascist position that exists? Because I'm reading, it says here that he was highly critical of India, which whatever, and supported the irredentist greater Nepal claims.
Yes, although the movement is like, even though it is supported by some people like that, like Balan Saha, powerful people, the movement is still fringe. Greater Nepal is not happening. Nepali nationalists should just give up. It is just an unserious like talk.
Okay, it's a meme basically. It's a complete meme. Okay, understood. So these are the two main candidates that are likely backed by the military, right?
I talked to some comrades at Safal committee. I've talked to some comrades out, other comrades, and some we have like a lot of comrades here in Nepal think that the army is going to basically elect basically not elect, but basically a puppet a candidate into power for a few years, a few months, and then the candidate is eventually gonna and inevitably gonna fail at bringing quote unquote peace and order. And people believe, some communists believe that the army will basically say that the republic experiment has failed and overthrow the government and bring the monarchy, because the army has always been loyalists of the monarchy. And even after the monarchy was overthrown, the army, there was no significant systemic movements at restructuring the army or changing the army's leadership to make it not loyal to the monarchy, make it loyal to the republic. I don't think that was ever done. So that is a possibility. That is a real possibility.
A good chunk of the Nepali army is also composed of former Maoists, am I right? Former Maoist cadres. So are they also like
Yes.
monarchy loyalists as well, or is it like, are they the last like dissenting faction within the army that's against the monarchy?
The Maoists who were integrated the army were completely integrated the army, and they make no faction in the army. They are the army. They are part of the army. They make no different factions. There is no Maoist faction within the army.
Oh, so this is just like, okay, so everyone is loyal to the king. Understood.
It is unclear when everyone in the military is loyal to the king, but it is largely understood by people who have been closely looking at the military and its activities that the leadership of the military is definitely loyal to the king. It seems like that.
Okay, so basically, what you're hypothesizing is that what it seems like the military is going to do is they're going to have some sort of puppet in power for a little bit to try and at least show that, oh, we're trying to stabilize the situation. And inevitably, when it fails, they're going to say, see, this democracy experiment in Nepali democracy is an utter failure. We should have never left the monarchy. Time to bring back Gyanendra Shah.
Yes, that is what some communists in Nepal are hypothesizing.
Okay, so that's one possible avenue. Is there any other possible avenue that comes to mind as far as like what happens from here?
I think it is possible that the fascist Balen or the neoliberal Rabi Lamisane will organically, somewhat organically rise to power because of their popularities. That because of basically the people have been fooled by them. So because of their popularity, they hold among a certain reactionary part of the masses. I think they can organically rise to power and make Nepal like some kind of maybe very right wing government. Make a very right wing government. I don't know how
Okay.
to.
So how are India and China playing into it? That's one of the audience members' question. How do other countries play into this? Or do you think it's not a relevant factor at all?
I don't think the factor is as relevant as some people think. But I do think that since the Nepali monarchs, one thing that Nepali monarchists don't have going for them is support of basically they are not as currently, at least they are not as close with China. But I think China that has backed the Maoist, not Maoist, the China that has backed the monarchy before will back it again. The China only cares for its own national and economic interests, and it will back anybody, however reactionary they are. So I think
Oh yeah, we know. We know they backed the Nazis in Sri Lanka as well against the Tamils. We're familiar.
I think India has time and again used opportunities like this in Nepal to deepen its own influence in Nepali politics. And I think, like every other time, this time it will do as well. But I don't think currently, as to what is happening, I don't believe personally that currently India has any factor at what is going on. At least not now.
Is the monarchy fully fascist as well? They are. The monarchy is fully fascist, extremely fascist.
Yes,
Extremely fascist, anti-dissent. It is a brutal monarchy. It is exactly what you would expect.
it's a brutal monarchy.
How big is the Safal movement? Are they in a position to make demands? I think we mentioned this earlier. It looks like we talked about this earlier. The Safal movement is growing. It is a very small movement at the moment, but hopefully the Safal movement does grow and people, the movement that is happening right now is geared more towards class struggle. I hope that's the case. I hope people are able to become, radicalized towards class struggle within that sort of time very quickly. I hope so.
Safal committee was
1 second, I'll be right back. You can talk to Chad. 1 second, I'll be right back. You can keep talking. I have to go grab my phone.
okay. The Safal committee was expected. It is a new organization, so it has very little mass support currently, and its demands are completely reliant on the masses themselves, who were protesting at the time when the first demands were released. And the Safal committee was expected to grow quite significantly in today. The Safal committee would have grown today, as per the estimation of the communists involved in the Safal committee and others. But because of the fact that army has kind of taken over and has been deployed everywhere, it has become quite dangerous for the Safal committee to organize with workers and students, as there also have been a lot of conspiracy theories about the fact that external forces have affected the movement, and a lot of things that happened within the protests that were justifiably happened because of the massacre. A lot of people burned down the buildings, burned down the parliament, beat up the politicians, and it was quite justified because of the fact that because of everything that happened. But after everything is said and done, people had started backtracking and blaming it on basically boogeyman, and Safal committee fears that the state and the army will make it the boogeyman. So its expectation to grow today significantly has been hindered, but I don't think the cause is completely defeated.
Okay. So you're basically saying that there is room for a Safal committee to grow.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Can the Safal committee grow under military rule if they're small? Isn't there a high likelihood of them being suffocated? Yes, but as always, like, you got to try. How big is the monarchist movement? Mostly propped up by the military or what? No, the monarchist movement is sizable. It's not like a majority or anything, but it's a sizable movement. They were protesting several months ago in February, like January, February this year. Overall, monarchists are not very popular, and neither, especially the king, isn't that popular. No one really likes the king.
As fringe as the monarchist movement was a couple of years ago, even though not much people like them, it has come to become more mainstream than before, and a lot of people have basically pivoted towards having positive views of the monarchy. Not a significant number of people, but a lot of people still, not significant percentage, but still a lot of people have pivoted their view towards the monarchy in the last couple of years. And that is the monarchist protest is the last time. And I believe that the reactionary KP government reacted the way it did to peaceful protests because it feared losing power to the monarchists, and also because it had seen a lot of protests occur in Indonesia. It has seen the government fall in Bangladesh, and the government acted immediately in a peaceful protest by massacre, and yeah, the rest is what happened.
Understood. Might have missed this part, but how does the Safal intend to establish connection with the protesters on the ground? They are on the ground, are they not? The Safal committee is on the ground.
Yes. The Safal committee was on the ground when the protests were happening yesterday. Today, the protests have been stifled, and Safal committee does not currently. I am not aware if Safal committee is currently on the ground, but I'm aware it was on the ground yesterday.
Okay, so yeah, they are already on the ground. This is the statements that the Safal committee have made are based on the conditions on the ground.
So the thing I would like to talk about is that since the protests have turned into extreme violence, a lot of things have happened, and a lot of violent criminals have been broken out of jail, along with criminals like Ravi Lamithane. A lot of violent criminals also have broken out of jail and have been armed with police and army weapons. And I think that this was done with the collusion of the police and the military, and they did this to basically the military did this in collusion with the police in order to create fear among the public, create confusion, and to make themselves to cement themselves as saviors of the people by killing the criminals they themselves let on the streets. These violent criminals who have been let out have committed a murder in a lot of places. They have shot a lot of people. They have raped a lot of people. There have been a lot of reports coming out of armed men committing rapes all around the country. And yeah, I think this is basically a tactic of the police and the military to make military into heroes so that they have an easier time taking the power.
So basically, they're letting criminals out of jail in order to basically
Yes.
bolster the support of the military, basically.
Yeah, a lot of jails have been completely empty, and all criminals have been let out. And they also have been armed in a country where all of the arms of the people were surrounded to the UN and surrounded to the state. After the civil war, I don't think people can just willy-nilly just get arms. Especially people who just got out of the jail just can't get arms out of nowhere. And so I believe that this is a conspiracy by the army and the police.
Wait, they armed the criminal. Wait, they armed the criminals that they let out. Okay.
Yes,
Okay. It's a
it looks
conspiracy
like
to
a
keep the
conspiracy.
military
Yes.
in power. Got it.
Very much feels like a conspiracy. I don't think there is any other way.
So there is one thing that's immediately different
Nepal,
between Bangladesh. It looks like the military is
yeah,
permanently stepped in, or at least for the foreseeable future, they've stepped in.
they have stepped in, but most people are conceiving this martial law as something that is temporary, something that will basically be used to kill the protesters, not protesters, kill the violent criminals that are rampaging throughout the streets and using that fear. But most people view this as temporary, even though I don't think that is the case.
Yeah, they're manufacturing chaos so that the cops and the military look like the good guys here. That's basically what they're trying to do.
Unfortunately, a lot of people of Nepal have a rosy view of the military. They have a positive view of the military, and that is being exploited. And I think people have been fooled by the military because of their positive view of them.
Not surprising.
And Robin Williams was broken out of jail by his loyalists, have escaped, and people who organized the movement and the group that organized the movement that is called Hami Nepal. Yes, the group that organized the movement, one of the groups, the bigger groups that organized the movement was Hami Nepal, and Hami Nepal have said that it has no connection to the people who freed Rabi Lamisani, and they do not support it, and they will not take responsibility for it. It seems like either the Rabi Lamisani was escaped out of prison by his loyalists. It is possible that his freeing had something to do with the military and its collusion with the police.
What the hell? Anti-government protesters raided the Singha Darbar Palace in Kathmandu during the ongoing protests. Some of the protesters are armed with NATO, British L1A1 SLR, and India Ishapur A1 1A1 rifles. Very likely taken from the Nepali forces. What the? So these are the. So it looks like these are the guys that have been armed by the army.
Yeah, basically, as always, the bourgeoisie, the government has used the lumpen proletariat, the criminals, the violent criminals, as basically strategic weapons against the proletariat and their interests, against the working class and against the students.
They robbed cops, and they are the rioters who are burning. So these are the burning of the parliament was actually originally done by people that were backed by the military in the first place, right? Or am I misunderstanding that?
It is possible. I don't believe that burning of the parliament was done just by the. I do think that burning of the people who were angry about the massacre, and people just angry about the massacre could have just went down and burned the parliament, and they would be pretty much justified in doing so, because the basically the buildings, the architectures, the
Okay, understood.
blocks and mortars are not comparable to human lives. It is possible, but I don't think even if anybody had done that, even if the protesters had done that, I would still not play into this rhetoric. I will not villainize any the burning down of infrastructures, police stations. I would like to avoid villainization, regardless of who have done that, because I do think it is possible that people in their anger, because of the massacre, have engaged in burning downs, and I think it is also possible that some people that were armed by the military, some people that were basically made to infiltrate the protests, have also done that. But I would still not like to villainize the actions.
Understood.
And monarchists have also infiltrated some of the protests. There were reports yesterday that protests from Pokhara was completely infiltrated and taken over by the monarchists. So that is also.
Where is Pokhara? Yeah, Pokhara.
It is
It's
a tourist area. It's more like a nature tourist area of Nepal.
okay. So is it close to Kathmandu, or is it pretty far away?
Comparatively close. It depends on what close means.
Okay, understood. Keep in mind, they didn't just burn Parliament; they burned down the Supreme Court, Nation Reserve Bank, building of anti-corruption department, other government buildings. It seems like an attack on all forms of civilian government infrastructure.
A lot of liberals who were initially supporting the protests have now completely backtracked. They are spreading conspiracy theories. They are basically knowingly or unknowingly, unbeknownst to themselves, creating consent to kill the people who are at the forefronts of the protests, and I think that is very dangerous.
Okay.
A lot of liberals are also calling for the military to intervene to save the brick and mortar that was destroyed, and I don't think that is acceptable.
Okay, yeah, this is okay. Okay, so a lot of the protesters are coming from they're coming from here, or a lot of the infiltrators are coming from Pokhara, right?
I'm unsure whether that is true or not, but the it is true that the protest in Pokhara was infiltrated deeply. But I think infiltrators are not just coming from Pokhara. I think there are monarchists infiltrating the protests, and there are even like monarchists. Mainly, the monarchists are infiltrating the protests. So it is possible that there are monarchists everywhere. There are a lot of monarchists in Kathmandu, so it is possible that the protests are being infiltrated everywhere, and not just in Pokhara. But the one in Pokhara has been successful.
Okay, it's more like there are more pro monarch rioters in Pokhara itself. There are protests happening all over the country in every big city and region. Okay, so it's a countrywide protest. Understood. Okay,
Yeah, there
got
are
it.
protests happening all over the country. The epicenter of the protest is in Kathmandu, but there are also protests happening in Chitwan, Pokhara. There are protests happening in Jhapa, in multiple places. So it is a nationwide protest, but the
Okay,
epicenter is still Kathmandu.
okay, understood. Safety. Nepali army has strict checking in many main areas to maintain peace. Please cooperate. Only people with proper ID cards are allowed in sensitive areas. Please stay home unless emergency. Most organizers have called people
Yes,
to calm down and stay home. Okay, so it looks
yes,
like at least
the
for
army has declared a state of emergency, and army has very toughly basically repressed on the protests. Not only the protests, but the army has repressed on civil life. And because of that, a lot of protesters have been scared, horrified, and they have backed down. The main basically block of the protest, the main protest organized by the Hami Nepal was called back. The people are scared, and they are basically because of that, because of fear, they are basically blaming each other. A lot of people are blaming each other. Liberals, especially, are blaming each other, creating conspiracy theories to save themselves and target others.
okay, understood,
And
understood. The explanation by the army has been for people to cooperate so that rioters and looters could be arrested. Okay, but that's not, as our comrade on the stream has on the call has just recently said. It looks like this is a conspiracy ruse, whatever you want to say it. It looks like it's an excuse to basically follow through on a plan to resurrect the monarchy.
Yes, the army wants to take power, and it will do it whether by propping up neoliberal politicians, propping up fascists like Balin, or by reinstating the monarchy. The army just wants power by any means necessary. I believe that.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. So basically, the hope that we have for Nepal is that the Safal community actually manages to gain popular ground, and this movement right now is geared towards a direction where there's a obviously a class struggle based direction, basically.
Yes, the Safal committee has taken a lot of cautions. Especially the cautions have toughened, as I've talked to members of the Safal committee, and the cautions they are taking have toughened after 10 o'clock yesterday, when police announced its involvement on the ground. Not police, the army announced its involvement on the ground, and I think it is going to be harder than before to be on the ground right now. And I think it has been hard if they are on the ground right now. And it is uncertain, but I do believe that Safal committee will gain some ground. If not today, then tomorrow.
These are the last remaining set of, I guess, principled communists, you could say.
The Safal committee is an organization of
So
the communist youth. It is an organization that is grassroots and not connected to the ruling communist parties. And it is also the last set of communists that are actually trying to wage a struggle when at a time all other quote unquote communist parties have given up, and they have basically betrayed the masses. And even the communist parties that are not electoral have not done anything. They are not organizing. And some communist parties, such as SSCPN, Scientific Socialist Communist Party of Nepal, have released press briefings, just like the Safal Committee, and it has possibly they have been on the ground, but I'm unaware of that.
Scientific Socialist Communist Party of Nepal. We need a movement like this desperately, Arun. We need this. Like the Safal Committee in India. I agree.
I think that is everything that is to say about the protests. I think I urge everyone to share what is happening in Nepal. I say that follow Safal committee on all social medias. They are. I don't know if they are on any other social media than Twitter. I think they are, but I'm not sure. I think you'll have to look that up. Follow other people who are sharing what is happening on the ground, and try to speak about it internationally so that it puts pressure on the army to not take power to and remove martial law.
Right. Do you wanna shout your own Twitter account, or would you rather?
No, it's fine. My Twitter account is public anyway. My Twitter account is bitter Marxist at bitter Marxist. I'm called Rio Sid.
1 second, I got you pulled up. Wait, I'm pulling you up. Here you go. We
Yeah,
follow
whether
Shuffle
you guys
Committee,
follow
follow
me or
Bitter
not,
Marxist. This is our guest.
follow Safal committee. Even if you don't follow me, follow Safal committee because they are the ones actually on the ground waging the struggle. And I think it is very important right now to share what's happening. I think, and the main goal of the Safal committee is to reach Nepali people. But I think it is nice to also have an international reach. I think it also spreads the information locally, even if we have some international eyes.
Yeah, no, everyone needs to know the full story, because unfortunately there are lots of actors online that are automatically spinning this in the wrong direction. Either they're spinning it in a way that's trying to undermine the youth movement, that is trying to undermine what is potentially an actual leftist movement against a oppressive neoliberal comprador government. The chat, roughly 400, 500 people strong, they appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much. And I hope you guys also organize in your own respective countries against capitalism, against imperialism. And I wish you all best of luck in your own struggles. Thank you very much. And
If whenever you
I
want to
think,
come on, just let me know. If you have any updates, let me know. We will have you on. This my stream is your stream.
okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you.
Red
Thank you very
salute,
much.
red salute, red salute. Lal salam. That was Rio Sid, bitter Marxist, coming on to talk about the current situation in Nepal.